There is a huge difference between speaking a language and truly understanding a people, their culture, their unspoken rules. My boss, Mr. Caldwell, never grasped that basic truth. "We're letting you go, Camilla," he said on a Friday afternoon, not even looking up from his phone as if I were nothing more than a minor problem he needed to solve. I had been his cultural liaison and translator for our South American mining operations for 6 full years. I didn't have any fancy degree from an expensive university, but I grew up in the mountain villages where our company's mines were located. I knew the village elders personally. I understood the unspoken cultural rules that governed everything, and I knew when someone's polite yes actually meant absolutely never. "We've hired someone with a doctorate degree in linguistics from Cambridge University," Caldwell announced, finally looking up from his phone with a satisfied smile. "He's cheaper than you. He's highly certified with actual academic credentials, and honestly, we don't need a local girl holding our hands anymore through every little interaction. You're just a luxury expense we can't justify to our investors." I felt anger rising in my chest, but kept my face calm and professional. I turned in my security badge, cleaned out my small desk, and walked out of that air-conditioned office for the last time. I didn't delete any files or sabotage anything. I didn't break a single company rule or law. I just took my local knowledge, my relationships, my understanding of my people, and went home to my village. The mining permit for what the company called Sector 7 was the absolute backbone of Caldwell's entire business operation. Without access to that particular area, the company would lose its most profitable source of minerals. To maintain that permit, Caldwell had to negotiate with the Council of Elders from my hometown every 2 years when the agreement came up for renewal. These weren't business meetings like he was used to. In our culture, you absolutely never talk about money first. You talk about family, you ask about health, you drink the traditional tea made from mountain herbs, and you listen more than you speak. You build relationship before you build business. There were also specific cultural rules that outsiders would never know unless someone taught them. For example, you never wear a yellow tie or yellow clothing to a negotiation meeting with the elders. In our culture, yellow is the color of mourning and loss. Wearing it to a business meeting signals disrespect and suggests you think the relationship is already dead. I had spent 6 years carefully building a bridge of trust between Caldwell's company and my village elders. Caldwell genuinely thought he owned that bridge, that it was made of signed paperwork and legal contracts. He didn't understand that the real bridge was made of respect, relationship, and cultural understanding. And he just burned it by firing the only person who knew how to maintain it. I grew up in those mountains, the youngest daughter of a family that had lived there for 10 generations. My grandmother was on the Council of Elders until she passed away when I was 15. She taught me everything about our traditions, our language, our way of seeing the world. When Caldwell's company first arrived looking for mining permits, they made mistake after mistake, insulting people without realizing it. The council was ready to send them away forever. But I was working as a translator in the regional capital, and someone suggested they hire me. I came in, fixed their mistakes, taught them the proper way to approach the elders, and saved their first deal. Caldwell hired me full-time after that, though he never really valued what I did. To Caldwell, I was just someone who turned Spanish words into English words and vice versa. He never understood that real translation is about translating culture, context, meaning, and intention. When an elder spoke in metaphors, which is how wisdom is traditionally shared in our villages, I didn't just translate the words. I explained what the metaphor actually meant in practical business terms. When an elder seemed to agree but used a certain tone of voice, I could tell Caldwell that we needed to address an underlying concern first. I was the bridge between 2 completely different worlds, and Caldwell thought he could replace me with someone who'd studied textbooks about language but had never lived the culture. 3 weeks after Caldwell fired me, the permit renewal meeting was scheduled. This was the big one, the meeting that would determine whether the company could continue operating in Sector 7 for another 2 years or lose access entirely. Caldwell flew down to my country with his new expert, a man named Dr. Wallace Pemberton, who had a doctorate in linguistics from Cambridge and spoke 7 languages fluently according to his impressive resume. I heard about this from my cousin who worked at the regional airport. Dr. Pemberton had apparently spent the flight reading academic papers about indigenous languages and seemed very confident. Caldwell was equally confident that his fancy new hire would handle everything perfectly without needing any help from a local girl, without formal education. The meeting was scheduled for 10 in the morning at the council building in the village center. I wasn't there personally, but I heard every detail afterward from multiple sources because news travels fast in small villages. Dr. Pemberton arrived wearing an expensive suit and a bright yellow silk tie that probably cost more than most villagers earned in a month. He thought the yellow made him look bold and confident. He had no idea he'd just announced to everyone present that he viewed this negotiation as a funeral for a dead relationship. The elders saw that tie and immediately knew this man understood nothing about their culture. But they are polite people, so they said nothing and waited to see what else would happen. The Council of Elders invited Caldwell and Dr. Pemberton to sit at the traditional negotiation table, a beautiful wooden table carved by village craftsmen generations ago. Following ancient custom, the elders' assistants brought out the ceremonial tea, made from herbs grown on the mountainside, and prepared according to a recipe passed down for centuries. Offering this tea is a sign of respect and welcome. Accepting it is how you show you respect the culture and are open to building relationship. Dr. Pemberton looked at the simple clay cup placed before him, hesitated, then politely refused it. He said something about being concerned about hygiene and hoping they weren't offended. The elders' faces remained neutral, but that was the second massive insult within the first 5 minutes of the meeting. The lead elder, a man named Don Augusto who I'd known since childhood, began speaking in our local dialect. This wasn't the formal Spanish that outsiders usually heard. This was the language of the mountains, full of metaphors and indirect references that carry deep meaning. Don Augusto said, "The mountain is very tired, my friends. It is given much and needs time to rest and heal." This is a traditional way of saying that the community hasn't received fair compensation for the previous mining period and needs the debt settled before moving forward. It's not a direct accusation, which would be rude. It's an invitation to acknowledge past problems and make them right. I would have immediately understood this and translated it properly for Caldwell. But Dr. Pemberton, for all his academic credentials and language skills, only understood the literal words. He heard "mountain is tired" and thought Don Augusto was making a comment about the physical terrain. He turned to Caldwell and translated. "The elder says the land is difficult for machinery to operate. The terrain is too tough." Caldwell nodded, thinking he understood the situation. He whispered back to Dr. Pemberton, "Tell them we can bring in better equipment." Money is no object. Dr. Pemberton translated this into textbook-perfect Spanish, completely missing the actual conversation that was happening beneath the surface. The elders looked at each other with expressions that I'm sure showed their growing concern. This foreigner didn't understand anything. Don Augusto tried again, speaking more directly this time though still using the proper cultural forms. "The children of the mountain feel forgotten," he said. "The school needs repair, the medical clinic has no supplies, the road washes away every rain season." This was his way of listing the community benefits that had been promised but never delivered during the last permit period. In our culture, you don't make accusations or demands. You speak in terms of needs and relationships, giving the other person a chance to do the right thing voluntarily. A good cultural liaison would have translated this as, "They need you to fulfill your previous community development promises before discussing new terms." But Dr. Pemberton wasn't a cultural liaison. Dr. Pemberton translated Don Augusto's words literally. "The elder says the local children feel neglected. The infrastructure is poor." Caldwell, thinking this was just small talk or background context rather than a serious negotiation point, waved his hand dismissively. "We're here to discuss the mining permit, not local charity projects," he said. "Tell them we'll consider community assistance after we settle the main contract terms." Dr. Pemberton translated this, and I can imagine the elders' reactions. In their view, Caldwell had just announced that he considered the community's well-being to be unimportant charity rather than a fundamental part of the relationship. That was probably the third or fourth major insult, depending on how you counted. The meeting was falling apart and Caldwell had no idea. Don Augusto sat back in his chair and was quiet for a long moment. The other elders waited, watching him. This silence was significant in our culture, a sign that something important was about to be said. Finally, Don Augusto spoke again in the mountain dialect. "Perhaps the mine brings more weight than wealth to our people," he said. This was a profound statement, meaning that the mining operation was causing more problems than benefits, that the relationship had become unbalanced and harmful. It was a warning that the elders were considering ending the permit entirely. The right response would have been to acknowledge this concern seriously and ask what could be done to restore balance. That's what I would have advised Caldwell to do. Dr. Pemberton translated, "The elder is concerned about the environmental impact." Caldwell, growing impatient with what he viewed as vague philosophical talk, decided to cut through what he saw as nonsense. "Wallace, tell them we'll increase our payment by 5%, he instructed. "That should address any concerns they have." Then Caldwell made the biggest mistake of all. Frustrated by the indirect communication style he didn't understand, he told Dr. Pemberton, "And if they're still hesitant, suggest we could make a special payment directly to the council members. A little extra incentive to move this along." He was suggesting a bribe, though he probably thought of it as a normal business practice. Dr. Pemberton, following his employer's instructions, carefully explained in proper Spanish that Mr. Caldwell was prepared to offer additional financial compensation to the council members personally if they would approve the permit renewal today. The reaction was immediate and devastating. In our culture, offering money directly to elders is one of the worst insults possible. It suggests they can be bought, that their integrity is for sale, that they don't genuinely care about their people's welfare. The council members didn't yell or argue or show anger outwardly. That's not our way. Instead, they stood up as one, their faces completely neutral. Don Augusto closed the leather folder containing the permit documents, tied it with string, and said simply, "This meeting is finished. The mountain has spoken." Caldwell looked confused as the elders filed out of the room without another word. "What just happened?" he asked Dr. Pemberton. "Did we get the permit?" Dr. Pemberton looked nervous, finally realizing something had gone very wrong but not understanding exactly what. "I'm not sure," he admitted. "They said the meeting is finished." Within an hour, Caldwell received official notice that his company's permit for Sector 7 was revoked immediately. Furthermore, the company was banned from entering the entire province. The council had spoken, and in our culture, once that decision is made, there is no appeal, no second chance, no negotiation. The relationship was dead, killed by ignorance and disrespect. $50 million in projected revenue vanished in less than 10 minutes of catastrophically bad cultural translation. Caldwell called me that same evening from his hotel near the airport. I was sitting in my grandmother's old garden, tending to the herbs she'd planted years ago when my phone rang with his number. "Camilla, thank God you answered," he said, his voice frantic and stressed in a way I'd never heard before. "Something terrible has happened. The council revoked our permit and banned us from the province entirely. You have to come down here right now and fix this. Tell them it was all a misunderstanding. Tell them we didn't mean any offense. Use your connections with the elders." I let him finish his desperate plea before responding calmly. "I can't do that, Mr. Caldwell," I said, running my fingers over the herb leaves in the fatting sunlight. "In our culture, once the mountain has spoken, the conversation is permanently over. There is no fixing it or going back. You brought a man who speaks textbook words but fired the person who understands the silence between the words." Caldwell started arguing, offering me double my old salary, triple, whatever I wanted. "Just fix this, Camilla. I'll rehire you, I'll give you a raise, I'll admit I was wrong. But you have to fix what happened today." I remained quiet for a moment, then spoke the truth he needed to hear. "Some things cannot be fixed with money or apologies, Mr. Caldwell. You have to live with the results of your choices." The consequences for Caldwell's company were severe and immediate. Without the Sector 7 permit, the company lost its primary source of revenue and profit. Investors who'd been promised access to those mineral resources started pulling out of their commitments, demanding their money back, filing complaints about mismanagement. The company's stock price dropped dramatically within days. Caldwell had to sell his private jet to cover immediate debts. He downsized from a downtown office building to a single rented room above a shop. He laid off most of his staff. He went from running what looked like a successful mining operation to desperately trying to keep any business alive at all. He wasn't a victim of my revenge because I didn't do anything to him. He was simply experiencing the natural results of believing that cultural wisdom could be replaced with an academic certificate. About a month after the disaster, I received a visit from Don Augusto and 2 other council elders. They came to my family home, sat in our front room, and drank tea with my mother and me. "Camilla," Don Augusto said, "the council has been discussing what to do with Sector 7. We do not want another large foreign company coming in and treating us the same way. We don't want to be disrespected in our own land." I nodded, understanding. "What we need," he continued, "is a partner we can trust. Someone who understands our ways and our needs. Someone who belongs to our community." He paused, looking at me directly. "We want you to help us create and manage our own sustainable mining cooperative. We will control our own resources and our own future." I was shocked and honored by their proposal. They explained their vision, a cooperative owned by the village communities, operating with respect for the land and traditions, providing fair employment and benefits to local people, managed by someone they trusted completely. They were offering me the chance to be the managing director of this new venture, to help my people control their own destiny instead of being controlled by outsiders. I accepted immediately. Over the following months, we established the Mountain Communities Mining Cooperative, funded by a combination of village savings, regional development grants, and ethical international investors who respected our approach. We started small but grew quickly because we operated with wisdom instead of just greed. 3 years have passed since Caldwell fired me for being an expensive luxury he couldn't afford. The Mountain Communities Mining Cooperative now generates more annual revenue than Caldwell's company ever did at its peak. We operate with respect for the land, taking only what can be sustainably harvested. We reinvest profits into community development, schools, medical clinics, roads, clean water systems. Every family in the region benefits directly from the cooperative's success. We conduct all our business meetings over traditional tea, we honor the wisdom of the elders, we never wear yellow ties, and we speak in metaphors because that's how truth is best shared. I'm no longer just a translator. I'm a leader helping my people build a better future on their own terms. Caldwell, from what I hear, spent 2 years trying to sue Dr. Pemberton for professional negligence and breach of contract. He claimed the translator's incompetence cost him everything. The case was eventually dismissed because Dr. Pemberton had technically done what he was hired to do, translate words from one language to another. He just didn't translate meaning, culture, or context, but that wasn't specifically in his contract. You can't sue someone for not having a soul or cultural understanding. Caldwell never rebuilt his business. Last I heard, he was working as a consultant for other mining companies, probably making the same mistakes. Dr. Pemberton went back to teaching linguistics at universities, completely unaware of how badly he'd failed at actual communication. I think about that day in Caldwell's office sometimes, when he told me I was just a luxury expense. He thought he was cutting unnecessary costs. He didn't realize he was cutting the only thread holding his entire operation together. The most expensive thing you can ever lose isn't money or equipment or even permits. It's the person who tells you what you need to hear instead of what you want to hear. It's the person who understands not just words but hearts, not just language but culture, not just business but relationships. I lost a job that day, but I gained something much more valuable. The chance to serve my people directly, to build something based on respect instead of exploitation. Caldwell lost everything by trying to save money. Sometimes the cheapest choice costs you more than you could ever imagine, and sometimes the person you dismiss as unnecessary is actually the foundation holding up your entire world. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channels. You can also tell us what you think in the comments.